Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Welcome back,
you're
man.
back.
Hey, what's up, bro?
Back.
Hi,
You know,
hi, guys. So, I was
Sorry, Mo.
listening.
Sorry, just to cut you. I'm about to start the intro now, innit? So let me just do a quick intro just so our guests are ready, because we're gonna have some people join in the next 30 seconds. Yeah, so we may as well
Okay.
just start. So yes, people. Oh, that was a bit loud. Yes, people.
Energy.
Energy.
right, bring the energy. It's all good, bro.
Yes, people, members of the decentralized movement, this is the AfroFinLab podcast. Today we have the regular presenters, myself, Tashoma, we got James, Sidney, our new graduated presenter, Azeezat, who was in a previous episode as a referee. She knows her stuff now, so she's joining the presenter ring. We have our expert guest, Dewayne Cameron, the founder of the Liqwid Project. And then finally, we have a very special guest today, the enigmatic, award-winning singer and songwriter from Senegal, Moh Dediouf.
Congrats to all of you. Thank you for really giving me the opportunity to join this futurist conversations. Really, I appreciate it. Really, from where we are, that's something really that I really appreciate, because I trust where this is definitely where the future are. But after saying that, the first issues that we are having here is like all of you, when I'm listening to you, you are talking about something very technical, and you agree, like it's like a common sense for everybody. You know, all the words that you're using, blockchain and all of that. I mean, it sounds like, I mean, even if I understand it, from where I am, it's like a nightmare. I'm like, what the hell these guys are talking about? You know, I'm putting off, taking off my brain, or all the studies I've done. I'm like, okay, I'm here in Senegal. People are dealing with like real stuff, which is part of Africa, but I know enough South Africa and Niger and all the stuff. So all the things that you're talking about yourself. From my perspective, I'm like, dude, I mean, we start to discover what they call, I don't know, the other blockchain. I mean, I forget the name, the famous one. You know, they start to introduce it here, and now you guys come up with something else. So the first thing that I would advise for me is like to, if you address the communication to normal people, so let's take it very, very basic and very, very simple. What it is exactly. I mean, this thing that you have created. I don't want to name it, because I mean, for my position is, for me, is to how to find the key point of communication to make it popular. I mean, because after all the discussion we have done, I really trust in this project, and I really trust that it's something will definitely break down all the wrong way that our political people have driven us, you know, on the financial way that they have done, which is like a non-ending nightmare. And I really trust that this could be a very, very great opportunity to bring something new without any moral point of view or any, I don't know, political point of view. But I mean, we're talking about facts. But I mean, we have to be very, very, very basic. That's my first thing. I mean, because I mean, you're talking about things, for you it sounds like normal. Of course, it sounds, a lot of things sounds very normal for the common sense. But I mean, the question is why people don't never get into that, you know? So, and I think here, if I can give one example, there was a French company called Orange, who are the cell phone company, who create what we call here Orange Money, which is kind of your wallet and all the stuff. It took them maybe 5 years to really make it popular, but they use basic communication. They use like the theater people who are acting on the streets, who knows the words for people, and they use them for advertising. Very basic. And I mean, here,
Simple.
a lot of things works. I mean, I won't go talk about Africa because I mean, really, the things I'm talking about Africa is very different in the very one point of, I'm talking about Senegal right now, right? Really, I can't talk about Ghana or Niger or whatever. I mean, in Senegal or French African country. So the communication will be the key. I assume that, I mean, all the technical things, all the the scientists, the efficiencies are there. I trust that. But the communication, because from here, yeah.
You literally just open up the discussion perfectly. Like, I hadn't even finished my intro, but basically everything you laid out there was exactly what we want to dig into in this episode. No, seriously. So I actually had something prepared here. So, but I'll take the first stab at answering your question, right? I'll take the first stab, and I think it's going to be beneficial to get everyone's point of view on this, right? But let me break it for everyone who's new to the space. Essentially, why we're so hot on the Cardano project, especially myself being Jamaican of Afro descent, like why it appeals to me specifically, right? So just firstly, if we're going to answer this, we need to look at it from a very macro perspective, all right? And also historical perspective, right? Look at it this way. The crypto market right now is only worth $251 billion. Yeah. The purpose of the crypto market was to disintermediate all financial services, the financial industry. That was Satoshi Nakamoto's big idea, to replace the reserve currency that we currently have with something that is decentralized and owned by its users, instead of being owned by a centralized party like the Federal Reserve, who can basically hold the whole world ransom. Okay?
We've got a question on what was that big word?
Disintermediate. So to disintermediate something, we need to replace it with a better solution. All right. Now, that was the whole purpose of Bitcoin. But you see, it's been 10 years now, almost 10 years now since Bitcoin was invented, and we still haven't seen a lot of change. There's been developments. There's been Ethereum. You can do a lot of cool stuff with Ethereum, but it wasn't able to scale to the billions of users that Bitcoin was supposed to scale to. Cardano is the latest state-of-the-art blockchain out there that solves all the problems that we were previously having with blockchain. Now, the total stock bond market capital of the world is 118 trillion. 118 trillion. That's like 1,000 billions times 118. Cardano is the first opportunity we have as a decentralized community to actually start to go after some of these applications and replace them with decentralized counterparts. We're talking about TD, Barclays, Bank of America, Western Union, these megalithic financial institutions that we depend on in our everyday lives will be replaced by blockchain 3.0 solutions in this decade. And we are at the very tip of this wave. Now, as an African now, looking at it from a historical perspective, we haven't had financial autonomy for almost 500 years. Like, we've never been using our own currency. We've always been using a foreign currency and having to pay interest on top of that, right? So this is a very, very, very special moment in time. I'm just going to leave it at that. Who wants to pick up next?
I'll pick it up next. I just want to add on top of that, Cass says something really important here. We can rebuild the HSBCs, the Lloyds of the world. We can rebuild them on Cardano, crypto, smart contract rails. The way we can't really do that on other blockchains like Ethereum or Bitcoin today. And what does that mean? Bitcoin was early. They gave us proof of work, and it's kind of like a digital gold. Smart contracts and these computation abilities came with Ethereum, but without the ability to really scale, and very expensive transaction fees that actually don't allow for the type of throughput that some of the applications that we need to build will require. Actually, Ethereum is more like a sandbox proof of concept at this point. When you think about, some of the applications that have been built on top of it, like the crypto kitties of the world, like things that have completely crashed Ethereum. We couldn't have something like that on Cardano, right? Because Cardano is going to power entire social worlds, entire financial systems, entire credit markets and data markets. We're not just going to have, a single one social application crash the whole network, like what we saw in 2017 with Ethereum, basically. So very different infrastructure that the developer, the dApp developer, the app developer that's integrating into Cardano, very different granite infrastructure they're building on with Cardano compared to a much more, proof of concept, rapid deployment that you get with the Ethereum world as a result of being so early into the market. But great point, Steph.
Yeah, and I'll jump in there too. My contribution, I think, is probably going to be from a different perspective. So the way that I look at it is systems come into place to allow you to do some things that are important for your social order. So there were things that we couldn't do, 60 years ago that we can do today because the infrastructure is in place for us to do those things. So we have ideas about how we want the future to turn out, as far as democracy goes, as far as financial inclusion, as far as efficiency, all of these things we want as far as artists being able to, have more ownership over what they're producing. So today we don't have those things. And these blockchains have come into existence as the infrastructure to be able to create those things. So the way that I typically think about it is that, and I always use this example, and I mean it sincerely. I'm originally from the Detroit metro area, and I know people in my community that can break down a car all the way down to the smallest piece of rubber and then rebuild it back up. You know what I mean? But they're not going to be the folks that are engineering cars at General Motors or Ford or Chrysler, but they have this creative a zeal about them. And I noticed that in the communities I grew up in, that all the little boys and girls that I grew up around, they had this creative zeal, and then all of a sudden that gets suppressed. So I think what's happening with these blockchain systems is they're opening that up so that you don't have central authorities that can come down and put downward pressure on these ideas. And these folks that are coming up, they may not have a college degree or may not, be able to socialize with the folks that are, making a lot of money and not be able to rub elbows with those folks. But they have creative ingenuity, and now they can take that creative ingenuity. They can create the relationships that they need to create. They can kind of push value between those relationships, and they can get those ideas out into the space for people to be able to take advantage of them. Because the whole thing for me is about like opening up the creativity of opening up people's creativity, and I have no doubt that they'll be able to figure out whatever problems that we need to figure out moving forward into the future.
Wicked.
So what are you thinking?
Well,
yeah, I want to hear where Aziz is at after those three.
Well, I mean, I can't necessarily speak from that wide a scope. As everyone knows, I'm coming into this, I'm learning like literally every day. So I think I will probably, hopefully have like a very kind of like simple way of looking at it. But for me, it's just this idea that, touching on what some other people said, is about this idea that your wealth, you own it. Your data, you own it. You're the person that says, you know what, this ADA, this currency in my wallet, I can put into this system and say, this is what I want to do with my wealth. This is what I want to do with my data. And it's built in. It's not even a matter of me having to say it to anyone. It's the fact that my ownership of it is already built into the system. And just thinking about that and thinking of the possibilities and what that means, it's really, really mind-blowing for me. It's something that, it's not even something I would have ever thought of before. I wouldn't have sat down and thought, oh, when I put my money in the bank, you know, yeah, I know they invest it in stuff, but oh, well, what can you do? That's literally it. It's like, oh, well, you know, at least I'm saving something. Even if they're investing it in, like, obviously I'm a Muslim, so for me, it's like, who I bank with, I don't necessarily want them investing it in things that are like illegal, things that are hurting people, things that are like making issues around the world, funding wars, I don't necessarily, that's really important to me. So this idea that actually I can say, okay, here's my wealth, here's my money, and this is these you know, in, as I understand it, you can literally write it into the rules of this money here. It can't go anywhere. It can't go to war. It can't go to, you know, so start talking about really horrible things like child trafficking. It can't fund that. And that no one can take that away. No one can say, oh, you know, but we're these really like powerful people, and you know, this is our wallet and this is our thing, and we can do what we like with them. No one can say that to me, and that's huge. That is huge. Just being able to say, this money, you can build it in. It's not even a fact of you as a small person having to come to some company and say, oh, listen, this is what I want you to do. It's just there, and it's just free, and it's just easy. So yeah, I really like that, and I like this whole, I like the creativity around it as well. I like this whole thing where there's a community, and even me, like, I'm just coming in from nowhere, and like I'm here like pitching an idea of, oh, this is something that I can see happening with this, and the fact that can happen everywhere, and there's so much value and richness all over the world, and everyone has so much to offer. So and can you imagine what that will do for the world, being able to have everyone that come from different places and bring that information and that energy and those ideas together and just be able to build and create. It's just yeah, you can see it on my face. It's just wow. I don't have the words, but it's just wow. So yeah.
So I think we kind of lose some people when we're talking about, oh yeah, building financial services on top of the blockchain, right? Because like when we think of financial services, I guess it depends how old you are, but some people are very still stuck in the mentality of like brick and mortar businesses, like going into a bank, talking to your banker, taking your cash, depositing it with them, etc., etc. And you know, this applies definitely to like a lot of places in Africa. But I mean, well, they have mobile money now, so they kind of jumped over us. You know what I'm saying? But in some places, they're still very much using cash, right? So what does that look like? You know, bringing a financial service to these like rural areas in Africa on top of Cardano.
Can I answer that question indirectly by tying to some of the things I'm seeing in the chat here too? So Steve dropped into the chat, you know, you cannot do small transactions because of the costs. Also, can I send it to someone without paying outrageous fees, right? This is the result of intermediation, right? And for me, the word intermediary just doesn't sound dirty enough, right? That's why I like to use the word middleman instead, right? So forgive the gendered nature of that word, but like that word has the bad connotation that I'm looking for, right? And middlemen just scrape value off the top. Like, and so when we talk about disintermediation, we're talking about getting rid of those middlemen so that the transactions we really all want to engage in, all the value that Azeezat is talking about, we can preserve that value for the people who are creating and sharing it, right? And so for me, like, law is another example of this. When you have money, you have access to law. You have access to binding agreements. And there's a certain amount of value at which lawyers become indispensable, right? It's worth it to pay for them to ensure that transactions happen. But if Tashoma and I wanted to share a bike, and we wanted to have an agreement about who got the bike when on which days. We wouldn't consult a lawyer for that. It would be comically unnecessary, right? And you would never spend money on that. Think about any transaction where it would be nice to have trust with somebody, but obviously it wouldn't be worth hiring a lawyer. Once you disintermediate by being able to do things on a blockchain platform, now you have this ability to create agreements. And actually, I have less of a poor connotation with the word contract now. It used to be a dirty word in my head 5-10 years ago. Why would I want to put a contract into this situation? That would be a silly thing to do. I would just be creating red tape or bureaucracy. But now it's, oh no, we can make a contract for how we're going to share this bicycle. We can make a contract for who's going to take care of who and when, for who's going to supply who with what. All these little tiny things. And this is a conversation that keeps coming up in the ecosystem, right? Now that we can create these little contracts, now that it's not about bureaucracy, but about building trust among people who are creating value without making any of that value disappear, we really don't know the full impact of disintermediation.
100%. I could not. I'm just going to add on to that real quick because I couldn't put it any better.
How do you with the words, the grain size of the words there? I was trying to keep it layperson.
Yeah, Tash, what are you going to say?
DC, but we gotta let Mo talk. I can see he's looking puzzling, like he wants to ask you something. Say your piece, DC.
Okay, yeah, I was just going to say, don't think of it as blockchain, just think of it as a trust machine, right? Everyone who tries to complicate it and add in these buzzwords, they get away from the core essence of what James just explained, right? And that's all of these systems are. They're just establishing trust between people around the globe who don't know or trust each other originally, but want to do business together. How do they establish that trust? Build incentives and align them, right? I always have this famous saying, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. No matter what the contract, no matter what the project, the agreement, whatever it is, the venture, if you show me the agreed upon terms and conditions and the incentives, I can tell you what's going to happen in that situation, right? And how do you align incentives in blockchain? You use those tokens, right? Everyone who owns the token of Cardano, ADA, everyone who owns the token of Bitcoin, BTC, right? You agree to the rules of that game that you're playing and you play it honestly. And what does that mean, right? That means that when I enter into a contract with someone on the Cardano blockchain, say it's a contract that says I'm going to loan some of my ADA to James and James is going to pay me back with interest at a certain date. I now have not only the contract that we signed, but the execution of that contract is now in the control of the Cardano blockchain and all of the honest, right, validators, block producers, we call them stake pools in Cardano, right? All these honest players who are basically maintaining the blockchain, they're just executing the code that's in that contract that me and James agreed to before we ever, entered into that contract, right? So all blockchains are doing is establishing trust between different players who don't know each other and allowing them to execute contracts on chain that anyone can see, attest, validate, confirm to its.
When you say doing it on chain, what does that mean?
Sure. That means on the actual Cardano blockchain, when I lock up my tokens, right? People say send tokens to a smart contract, or what is a smart contract?
So when you send your value, your money, your wealth.
My ADA in this case, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's Cardano, so the specific crypto of Cardano is ADA. So if I send
you know what? Sorry, there's so many questions coming through in the chat.
Sure.
There's what's an ecosystem? Is an ecosystem the same as community?
Sure.
What do I have to pay Cardano in control? And what is different than any other blockchain? So that's.
So let's just unpack one kind of concept, right? And if I can get this through, that would be like amazing, right? This idea of on-chain versus off-chain, right?
Okay.
On-chain is everything that actually happens on the Cardano blockchain that is in no one's control but the algorithms of Cardano, right? So that means
on the records.
On the records, exactly. this record that's in the digital sky that everyone confirms and validates every single time there's an epoch or a block produced, that's called on-chain. Everything that we do when we're on our mobile apps, when we're using these different Cardano apps, whether it's for finance, whether it's the Cardano Facebook that's getting built right now, whatever that app is that we're using, that's off-chain because we're just doing it on our phone. We're now interacting with different parts of the blockchain, right? When we enter into a different agreement, when we send different tokens, different places to earn interest, those things are happening on the chain. So there's always this like dichotomy of what's actually the user controlling in their mobile app and actually then what they're agreeing to do on the actual chain at some later date that's getting executed out of their control by the control of the Cardano blockchain. So it's a little bit of like
things that are built into the record,
right,
and versus the things that you're doing with the things that are built into the record.
How you interact with it. Correct. Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Mo.
The actions that you can take. Yes.
Mo, what's up? What's going on? Oh, wait. You're muted, bro.
Microphone.
Yeah, you're muted. If you just click the microphone in the top left. Okay?
The microphone. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I was saying, yeah, I'm listening. So very, very, very instructive, really. I mean, everything is just said. So I want you all of guys to just do research for one community we call the Murid community. Okay. I don't know how you're going to write it. They're from Senegal. The reason why I'm saying that, I mean, when, they introduced me to the Cardano, the system, I think when I listened to all of you, there was one word that I can stick on, which is the trust, the trusting issues. So this community that I'm talking about, everybody are known at the fact that they have one leader. If he says, I mean, change your color in red, they all do, without going all the, I don't know, psychological things and all the stuff. So they will execute. And they always trying to find a financial system who are out of what already exists in terms of, I don't know, concerning Senegal, the dependency on France, banks and all the stuff, and they are all around the world, in New York, in just everywhere in the world, I think one of the key points of what, I mean, if I hope that I hope to play in this new way is really to how to fast forward the fact of really understanding Cardano and how myself convince one leader, not two, not three or five, to explain like what we was looking for centuries, like to really get your freedom and owning your transaction, all the stuff. We can maybe get it here, I have maybe to understand all the technical side, but I mean, just to know that, I mean, here it's doable. For example, concretely with, for example, this community. I'm saying that, I mean, because I mean, at the end of the day, all these things will work with the trust. And this is where I was saying about communication. If there was no trust, whatever you will explain I mean, and the trust can come from different issues, even how you dress or who gonna introduce that, to the people. But I mean, I know that, I mean, they will be sensible of all of these things of freedom. Freedom and freedom, because that's how they build their community to really, not being engaged to anyone else, that they always want to control their own way of living, and exchanging. But I mean, saying that, I'm coming back to the fact of all these technical things mean, in my mind, the more you're talking, I'm saying, okay, how can I translate this to, very, very easy way of like, okay, this is mine. Okay. And I mean, we are a community, so we use that every day, how to make sure that, I mean, I can build that anytime that I want it, and it doesn't depend to anyone else, you can call this the money or however you. But I think my point, so far that you are talking, I'm even not trying to go far in the technical side. I'm in the low side of like, okay, this guy, they far away from all the things that you're talking about. They are in the concrete way. Just let me give you an example. Tomorrow, they are the only community who can join 5 million people in one city in 1 hour and tell them, I mean, at 10 o'clock, everybody have to slow down. Without using any vibes. I mean, that's a whole psychological process. And there was a lot that we can learn from that because, I mean, again, the first thing they did teach us is like teaching by actions. Me, if I have to talk about like this project, I have to be the first one who prove them, like, I mean, I use it, it works for me, and I'm like you. You know, I have the same questions, the same things, the same, you know, we're the same. If it works for me, it will work for you. You know? Yeah. So I mean, besides all the technical things who are very, very, very interesting. I mean, again, I really trust that's one of the most innovative things that people will find. But again, there was a really, really, really a big work in terms of communication and how to translate it. I mean, simply, I think right now maybe the names that I'm using might sound like confusing or whatever, but I mean, I'm hoping that I can explain point by point why I think that they could be one of the first community who can join. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like I know a bit about the Moh community just from my own research, and I understand the amount of influence they have in Senegal. So yeah, like looking at these non-governmental organizations as kind of like the hub to kind of promote these new technologies, essentially, like, I think that's key, right? Where my mind always goes to is, what does this actually look like in reality? Wait, so when we say like Africa is going to leapfrog from cash to crypto, just like how they did from telecommunications to go straight to smartphones. You see what I'm saying? Like, so when we talk about a leapfrog, how does that look? And how I see it, in a few months from now, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's give it a year. Actually, I don't want to put no timing on it, but I'm going to say a year, right? You're going to be able to go to your community and be like, oh yeah, just download this app, just like how someone would be able to download Facebook or Spotify or any of these apps that we use currently, except that these apps are going to be built on top of the Cardano blockchain. So you see, like how with these apps, if you want to buy anything or if you want to do anything financial, you have to pull out your credit card or your debit card and type in your details and all that stuff for the financial aspect of it to process, right? Apps built on top of Cardano will completely skip that step out. It's just going to be built into the fabric of it, right? So
you wouldn't need to bring out anything. You wouldn't need to put in any information. It would already be there.
It would already be there.
It would know who you are, exactly.
And the powerful thing about this is you can go to your community and be like, hey, instead of using PayPal, instead of using Orange Money that are owned by these foreign companies, download this app instead, because we all collectively own it and we all collectively control it. In the same way you can go and sign up for Facebook and create a group and create an event and monetize that event, or even upload your music to Spotify and monetize your music that way, you're going to be able to be like, hey, just download this app. Now we all get to benefit from this process and control how
And yeah, I want to jump in there again too, because like Tashoma, you're talking about like this idea that doesn't exist today, but it's going to exist in the future, right? It's going to happen. And Moh, I think where I come in at is that, like, I don't know necessarily what like the specific solution might be for what it is that you're looking at. But what I do know, whatever it is you imagine it to be, the infrastructure in place is in place right now to create it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So exactly. So before it wasn't. You know, if you wanted, you can't interact with the traditional banking system or whatever it might be. But whatever that's in my opinion, that's the point that we need to get to is getting back to reimagining, you know, what our lives can look like outside of what our lives have become or what, you know, other people have told us our lives should look like or how we should run our lives. We get to sit down and say, okay, so what if we do it this way instead of that way? You know, or what if we do this instead of that? You know, we get to create that now. We get to imagine that now. And now the infrastructure is in place for us to be able to do that. You know, so I don't know. I mean, there's going to be a lot of really successful blockchains. There's going to be a lot of successful ideas across the world. For me, the point is now we can do that. The infrastructure is in place for me to be able to create a business without having to go to my bank and have them turn me down for a loan. You know, I can bring it to the community, and we can decide that that's important for us in the community, and we can make it happen through this infrastructure.
Perfect segue into plugging DC's project, the Liqwid Protocol. And we're talking about all of these billions of people that can't get access to loans. Like, I have a thesis here. I believe that the majority of the world's problems comes down to a liquidity problem. It's just simply the fact that people can't get access to the capital they need to solve the problems in their life, because all the money is being sucked to the top and held by the 0.01% essentially, right? So these systems are coming in to flip that system, and these two talk about Liqwid because this is exactly what's happening here.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, before I even talk about Liqwid, I want to say, you know, anytime, you know, Mo, to your point, anytime we're talking about problems, whether they be in Senegal, in Nigeria, or anywhere in West Africa, right, that deal with money or trust or data records, right, attesting to someone being that person online that they're trying to, you know, use the data to attest as. Any of those issues, blockchain in some way can help us solve, right, problems that exist today. Liqwid specifically is saying, you know, this concept of peer-to-peer borrow and lending markets, this concept of I want to open up a loan to start a small business, but I want an affordable interest rate, and, you know, maybe I want low or no collateral, right? Maybe I own a home, maybe I have some other assets that I can put up as collateral, maybe I just have my personal data that I can put up as collateral, or something like a digital version of my online credit, right? In many places, these things don't exist, and Liqwid is trying to introduce them in a way that is very lightweight and handled on chain, right? Meaning the same digital record that Azeezat speaks about, right? And just think of blockchain as this immutable digital record that is always going to be there, right? So the data that I put on there right now as a user, I can use that data to either open a loan. I can use that data if I've already opened a loan to build credit on chain. I can do all these things related to my personal finances and my personal credit and data that are going to, in the future, allow me to actually monetize that data in different applications that are built on top of Cardano. So then we start talking about things like, you know, maybe I've been using Liqwid for a few years as, you know, borrowing the digital Naira stablecoin in that market. I've used the digital Naira to help build my business. I've built up in Liqwid a solid credit score as a result of being able to, you know, keep my loans in a healthy status, not get liquidated, as we say, not default on the actual loan.
And
right?
that's
So
all
all
been
these
visible.
things
That's all been visible from that record. Okay.
Right. So in Liqwid specifically, there's like APIs and there's like entire web apps that will build to visualize the entire health of the system in terms of all of the outstanding loans, who holds them, how you can liquidate them and actually help secure the system. All of these things will be publicly accessible and completely open through the APIs. And whenever you're talking about smart contracts in general, like these are open source software that anyone can verify and validate. Anyone can fork and use your smart contract within their system. So you get a really composable open network when you start talking about building these type of systems on top of Cardano. And that's what we're trying to recreate with Liqwid. We think that the introduction of
What's
identity and the
APIs?
introduction of credit.
Steve's asked, what's API? Is that a credit score or
Sure.
what?
Application programming interface. API just allows you to basically take data and make decisions off of that data in a different application that's not like the native one. So in our instance, I'll give you an example. We have an API for credit that we're using. There's a company called Credmark. They build a product called Credmark Clear. We're going to integrate the API for Credmark Clear into our application. Liqwid, right? The dApp that we're building to allow users to basically not only build on-chain credit, but actually monetize that on-chain credit in different applications by saying, if I have the Credmark Clear equivalent of an 800 credit score in America, I can have applications priced at X. I can have zero cost loans, 0% collateral. If I have, a very bad credit score.
Is that like an add-on?
It's kind of like an add-on, exactly.
Yeah.
But you can have APIs for many different things. You can have, APIs that tell you the weather, APIs that tell you the specific time at places. Like there's APIs for
like a widget, like one of those widgets.
It's like bringing a widget into your application. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. It exposes the data in the application, right? So in any of all the applications that anything that you use on your cell phone that like needs data from another place, it uses an API to get that data.
Okay.
So like if you have a weather app, for instance, like if you have an app that shows you the weather in your location, that application on your phone is going out to another, to get that information, and that channel is the API, so it can get that information through the API. It's just an interface basically for that information.
So
just reading data and then using it in your app.
So Moh, we have 5 minutes left. Are there any questions you may have?
So again, I think that's a good start. Very, very interesting. I think it will be interesting between the next, Sunday, if you still let me join you guys, No. I'm in. Definitely. Let me say one thing. I'm even ready to build a song for that.
All right, let's go.
That's not a problem. That's not a problem. For me, I'm someone who is very, very practical because maybe from where I come from, I have done huge studies in France and all of that. And when I come back here, was always dealing the fact of what we have learned have nothing to do with what's going on here. Mm-hmm. And it takes years and years to really, see what works, out of here, if we talk about between us, of course, we all understand each other. It sounds like logical. That's so true. But unfortunately, words or even the normal brain of our type of brain are not working like this. They have things who are working for them already. The first thing is, why would I step out of this? Why? You're like, who? I'm here. I'm saying myself. The reason I'm gonna develop point by point why I'm using the MERD community, because again, I see. Everything works or doesn't work there inside. You still can correct it and make it better for the others, and it wouldn't be. They're not that exposed because the way that it works in the community, there was no critics or whatever. Again, if the Sheikh says use these things to send, for example, your Sadha, everybody will use it. Use these apps, they will. Mm-hmm. The idea is, we have to find enough arguments to say this is the key. Mm-hmm. This is the key. And again, go ahead.
I want to make a non-technical point, which is I know that not everybody on this call right now lives in the United States. A couple of us do. But I think a lot of us heard about the debacle that happened on Tuesday night when our candidates had their debate. And during that debate, a lot of people had a lot of different feelings, but my understanding is that, and the one I felt is powerlessness. I felt powerless. What can I do with these plans? There is They're not talking about the things that are important to me. And I really, truly don't feel like there's anything I can do about that. And if you live in a different country, I'm betting that you've probably had a similar experience. Mm-hmm. So when we think about what blockchains and what Cardano in particular is doing to the world right now, you just heard Dewayne talk about a project he's working on. Maybe you understood some parts of it. Maybe you have some questions. Maybe you have some feedback you want to give him. Everybody who's watching this right now has the ability to go give Dewayne feedback, okay? His project's not funded yet. It's going to be voted on 4 weeks from now by anybody who wants to choose if they think his project should be funded, all right? I feel so much more engaged, and I feel like there's so much more potential in the world when I think about the fact that I can reach out to Dewayne about his project via a system that already exists, and I can participate in building these things and making these decisions. That has nothing to do with technology, and it's already here. And I have high hopes for this having a big positive impact on all of our experiences.
I don't want to cut
you. We're gonna have to cut.
No, but like the fact that the power is in your hands, like
your
that's
hand.
the biggest thing is that just the power's at your fingertips, and I think that's huge.
No, that was a great ending note, people. As you're probably aware, there's so much more to unpack. That's why you have to join us every Sunday. We're changing the time. We're now doing it at 4 p.m. EST. So an hour earlier, okay? All the details will be on our website. Make sure you sign up and tell your friends. Get them to come with their question. Participate in the conversation. Decentralize the world. Let's do this.
Maybe the next time we have to do a 3 minute of, I don't know, a song concert or after or whatever to bring more people.
Moh, thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really, thank you very much for letting me join that. Really, and again, go ahead. This is the future.
Yeah, and Moh, I mean, it was cool to hear you talk about like how does this work for me and where I am right now. And I think I'm gonna keep going back to it, is that there's nothing set in stone right now. We get to create the future. I always say this, the future doesn't happen to us. The future is what we create. So like you have an idea of what's not working and what should work. You know what I mean? And after you get clear about what that is, the infrastructure is in place to support it.